The first thing neighbors heard wasn't a scream. It was the sound of keys hitting the floor. Metal against tile. Sharp. Final. By the time the apartment door closed, Emily Carter was already apologizing to someone who hadn't raised his voice once. She didn't know. That was the moment her life quietly ended. Some murders are loud. Others are brutal. But the most disturbing cases are the ones where the victim is slowly trapped, not with chains, not with threats, but with trust. This is not the story of a sudden attack. It's the story of patience, of control, and of a man who didn't rush because he never had to. Emily Carter was 29 years old, newly married, newly hopeful, newly convinced that stability had finally arrived. She and her husband, Aaron, had just moved into a quiet suburban apartment complex. Beige walls, trimmed hedges, the kind of place where nothing bad was supposed to happen. Emily liked routine. Morning coffee by the window, evening walks. She kept lists, groceries, bills, little reminders to call her sister back. She was building a life, and someone nearby was watching how carefully she built it. Hit like, share it with someone who loves real crime stories, and subscribe to the channel. Daniel Brooks lived doors down, late 30s, clean cut, unremarkable in a way that felt comforting. He was there on move-in day, carrying boxes without being asked. He returned tools before they were missed. He smiled, made eye contact, and never overstayed his welcome. Aaron trusted him immediately. Emily trusted him because Aaron did. And Daniel noticed everything. Which nights the lights stayed on. Which mornings Emily left later than usual. How she laughed louder with her husband than with anyone else. He noticed patterns, and patterns told him where to begin. 3 months later, Emily's phone rang at 4:14 a.m. Aaron was dead. A drunk driver ran a red light. The impact was instant. Violent. Final. Emily collapsed onto the kitchen floor and stayed there until the sun came up. Daniel was the first person to knock on her door. He brought water. He brought words. He brought silence when she couldn't stand noise. And when people slowly returned to their lives, Daniel stayed. He drove her to appointments. He filled out forms when her hands shifted badly. He reminded her to eat. Emily noticed how safe she felt around him. She mistook that feeling for healing. Grief does something dangerous. It shrinks the world. Emily stopped answering texts not because she didn't care, but because replying felt exhausting. Daniel noticed who stopped calling. He noticed who tried harder. He told her some people disappear when things get difficult. He told her he wouldn't, and slowly, without realizing it, Emily began checking with Daniel before making decisions. He framed it as concern. Just be careful. People take advantage when you're vulnerable. I worry about you. Each sentence landed softly. Together, they built a cage that didn't look like one. The first person to feel uneasy wasn't Emily. It was her friend Marissa. Marissa noticed Emily cancel plans last minute, not angrily, apologetically, as if she needed permission to exist. Elsewhere, when Marissa stopped by unexpectedly one afternoon, Daniel answered the door. He smiled, stepped slightly forward, didn't invite her in. Emily waved from behind him. She looked smaller. Later that night, Emily apologized to Daniel for making things awkward. She didn't understand why that sentence scared her when she said it. 2 weeks later, Emily tried to leave. Just once. She had packed a small bag. Nothing dramatic, just enough to stay with Marissa for a few days. Daniel didn't shout. He didn't touch her. He stood in the doorway and spoke slowly, carefully, like someone calming a frightened child. You're confused. Grief does this. You'll regret this. Tomorrow. Emily felt something twist in her chest, not fear, but doubt. By morning, she had unpacked the bag. She apologized. Investigators later said that moment mattered more than any other, because that's when Daniel realized he didn't need force. Emily disappeared 12 days later. Daniel called police himself. He said she'd been emotionally unstable, that she talked about leaving, that she'd likely run off. There were no signs of struggle, no broken objects, no forced entry. The lead detective, Rachel Moore, almost closed the case as voluntary disappearance. Almost. Something bothered her. Daniel cried but never asked questions, never demanded timelines. never showed hope, just certainty. And certainty doesn't belong in missing person cases. Police searched Daniel's apartment. At first, they found nothing. A near miss. Rachel doubted herself. Maybe grief had clouded her judgment. Maybe this was just another tragedy. Then a rookie officer noticed uneven wall panels behind a bookshelf. Inside were notebooks, meticulous, organized. Emily's habits, her moods, her triggers, and pages that didn't start with Emily's name. Other women, patterns. Daniel hadn't chosen Emily randomly. She had simply been vulnerable enough at the right moment. Search teams found Emily weeks later in a wooded area outside the city. She had been sedated. No defensive wounds. Forensics concluded she never understood she was in danger. Rachel couldn't sleep after that. Trust had been the weapon. Daniel confessed, but not cleanly. He corrected detectives when they used the word control. He called it guidance. He said Emily was safer when she didn't have to decide. That independence was a burden. He cried not for her death, but because people misunderstood his intentions. The courtroom went silent when he said, "I stopped her pain." Rachel realized then that Daniel didn't think he'd done anything wrong. That terrified her more than the crime itself. Daniel Brooks was sentenced to life in prison. Emily Carter became a name people whispered. Marissa still replays conversations in her head wondering which moment mattered most. Rachel teaches new detectives now. She tells them this: the most dangerous cases aren't the ones with violence. They're the ones where everyone feels safe. Because the most twisted predators don't chase you. They walk beside you. They help you, and slowly, they make sure you never feel strong enough to walk away. Not all danger feels dangerous. Sometimes it feels like protection, like care, like relief. And that's why awareness matters. Because noticing small changes in others and in ourselves can save lives. If this story kept you hooked and made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Hit like, share it with someone who loves real crime stories, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next shocking case.